Somewhere in the Arctic Ocean, on a frozen island that almost no one has heard of, a young woman sits beside a dying man and listens to a silence that has begun to feel like the end of the world. There is no doctor, there is no radio. The nearest living soul is hundreds of miles away across moving ice that no person can cross on foot and live. She is 23 years old, she weighs less than 100 pounds, and in a matter of weeks, she will be the only human being left alive on this island. Her name is Ada Blackjack, and almost everything that history would later remember about this expedition would be remembered wrong. She was born in 1898 near Solomon, Alaska, an Iñupiat girl raised in a world already being pulled apart by missionaries, traders, and disease. She was not a hunter. She was not an explorer. She had been trained as a child to sew, to make waterproof boots and fur garments with the patience that Arctic survival has always demanded. She had never fired a rifle in earnest, never set a trap, never spent a night alone on the ice. None of that was supposed to matter. By her early 20s, she was a single mother in the town of Nome, with a young son named Bennett who was sick with tuberculosis. She needed money, and she needed it badly. So when she heard that an expedition was hiring, she listened. The pay was $50 a month. The job, she was told, was simple: cook and sew for a small party of men heading north. What she was not told, not fully, was where she was going, or why, or how little anyone had thought about whether any of them would come back. The expedition was the idea of a famous Arctic explorer named Vilhjalmur Stefansson. He believed the Arctic was not a barren wasteland, but a friendly country, a place where a clever man could live off the land indefinitely. He wanted to claim a remote, uninhabited speck of land called Wrangel Island, far north of Siberia, on behalf of the British Empire. He would not go himself. He would send others to do it for him. The men he chose were young and almost entirely untested. Alan Crawford, the nominal leader, was a 20-year-old Canadian student. Lorne Knight, Fred Maurer, and Milton Gale were in their 20s, with little real polar experience between them. They sailed in September 1921, carrying 6 months of supplies and the unshakable confidence of men who had been told that the land itself would feed them. Ada Blackjack went with them. She was the only woman, the only native, and the only one of the 6 who had never wanted to be a hero. They reached Wrangel Island and raised a flag, claiming it in a ceremony that the island itself did not notice. Then the ship that had brought them turned south and left them there. The first months were not the disaster anyone might have feared. They hunted, they explored, they wrote in their journals about the strange beauty of the place. Ada cooked, sewed, mended their clothes, and kept the camp running. The men, by some accounts, treated her with a casual contempt. A servant, not a partner, in their grand imperial errand. She slept apart, she ate apart. She was, in their eyes, a piece of equipment that happened to breathe. She was lonely in a way none of them understood, separated from her son, surrounded by men who were not her people, on an island at the edge of the inhabited world. But the real enemy was not loneliness. It was the simple, mathematical fact that the land was not as friendly as Stefansson had promised. The first winter passed, and the supply ship that was meant to come the next summer, bringing food, bringing relief, did not come. The summer of 1922 arrived, and the sea ice never fully cleared. Ships that tried to reach the island were turned back by the pack. The 5 of them were now, in every sense that mattered, forgotten. They stretched their dwindling food. They hunted harder and found less. Game grew scarce. The fat that the body needs in the cold simply was not there. By the winter of 1922, hunger had moved into the camp and would not leave. The men grew thin. Their strength faded. The friendly Arctic had become a slow, patient trap. And one of them, Lorne Knight, began to sicken with something the others did not yet have a name for. Swollen joints, bleeding gums, a deep and growing weakness. It was scurvy. In January 1923, with the food nearly gone and rescue nowhere in sight, 3 of the men made a desperate decision. Crawford, Maurer, and Gale would set out across the frozen sea towards Siberia, hundreds of miles over shifting ice, to find help and bring it back. Knight was too sick to travel, so it was agreed. Ada would stay behind and care for him while the 3 men went for rescue. The 3 walked out onto the ice and into the wide distance, and there, the documented record of their lives ends. They were never seen again. No bodies were ever found, no message, no trace. Whatever happened to Alan Crawford and his 2 companions, the ice kept it and keeps it still. Back at the camp, Ida was now alone with a single dying man and a winter that had no intention of ending. Lorne Knight grew worse. The scurvy hollowed him out. He could no longer rise from his bed, could no longer feed himself, could barely speak. Ada, the seamstress with no survival training, became his nurse, his cook, his only company. She fed him, cleaned him, and tried, with the little she had, to keep him alive. According to her diary, he did not always treat her kindly even then. Sick and frightened, he turned his bitterness on the one person who had stayed. She wrote it down, and she stayed anyway. In June 1923, Lorne Knight died in the cabin on Wrangel Island, and Ada Blackjack was, at last, completely alone. There was no one left to bury him in the frozen ground, and she could not. So she did the only thing she could. She built a barrier of crates and boxes around his body, sealed the cabin, and moved her own life outside. Now consider what was being asked of her. A young woman, untrained, hundreds of miles from any other human being, on an island that had already killed 4 strong men. She had no expectation of rescue. As far as she knew, the world had forgotten the island existed. She had only herself, and the long Arctic days that would not let her sleep, and a fear of the dark beyond the firelight that no one was coming to chase away. Every sound outside the tent was a question with no answer. Every morning she woke was a small, stubborn victory. So she taught herself to survive. Piece by piece, mistake by mistake, she learned the things the men had been sent to do and she had only been hired to cook for. She learned to set traps and catch Arctic foxes. She taught herself to handle a rifle, missing again and again, before she learned to bring down the birds and seals that came near the camp. Every skill she gained was paid for in hunger and failure first. She was terrified of polar bears, which roamed the island and could smell the camp. So she built defenses, raising platforms, walling herself in, keeping watch in a way no one had taught her. She kept a diary through all of it, plain, unadorned entries about weather and hunger and work, written in the matter-of-fact voice of someone simply trying to live until tomorrow. And she was not entirely alone. There was a cat, a small camp cat named Vic, who had come with the expedition and stayed. In a place that had taken everything else, a cat was company and warmth and a reason to keep going. The months passed, spring came again, and somewhere far to the south, one person had not forgotten the island after all. Stephenson, hearing nothing, had finally arranged a relief expedition. A ship called the Donaldson pushed north through the ice in the summer of 1923, toward the island where 5 people had been left 2 years before. On the 20th of August, 1923, the Donaldson reached Wrangel Island. The men aboard scanned the bleak shore, not knowing what or who they would find. They found one survivor, a small woman, alone, thin and weathered, who had outlived 4 men and an empire's careless ambition. 2 years after she had sailed north as a hired seamstress, Ada Blackjack walked out of that Arctic alive. She came home to Nome, to her son Bennett, with the money she had earned and the will to use it on his care. That, in the end, was the only reason she had ever gone. And here is where the story turns strange. The world, when it heard, did not quite know what to do with her. The newspapers were fascinated for a moment, then moved on. The men who had died were eulogized as brave young explorers, martyrs to the great cause of the North. Their names set in headlines and obituaries. The woman who had actually survived was treated as a curiosity, a strange footnote, and then largely forgotten. Some accounts even questioned her, doubted her, picked at the story of how a seamstress could have lived where trained men had perished, as if survival itself were the thing that needed explaining. Ada Blackjack never sought the fame. She lived quietly, struggled with poverty for much of her life, and died in Alaska in 1983 at the age of 85, having outlasted nearly everyone who had ever doubted her. The men went north to be remembered. They are footnotes now. The woman went north only to save her son, and she is the one the ice let walk home. So why did the world celebrate the explorers who died and almost forget the one person who actually survived?